うわでこれもちゃんと押さえてる。わかる？でこれ。You don't have to know what's going to happen. You don't have to know about a technique. You don't have to know. You don't have to understand, right? Sensei would always say to us that you don't have to understand what I'm doing, right? And if you think you understand, then you probably don't. And if you don't understand, if you know you don't understand, then you're probably on the right track. So again, it's Hatsumi Sensei's birthday. I want to say a big thank you to Hatsumi Sensei and a big happy birthday to Hatsumi Sensei. And I may or may not be participating in a very secret party coming up soon. I can't tell you. You know, this is super secret, apparently. Anyways, so about understanding and not understanding. When I first went to Japan, I was 27 or so. I've been doing, I don't know, Bujinkan maybe 4 years or something. I don't exactly remember the amount of years. Let's say 4 years. I thought I knew some stuff. I had been going to a lot of seminars, been studying kata, so I thought I knew kata, right? So I went to Japan, and I walked in, I strode into Hatsumi Sensei's class in ISA, and I had no idea what was going on. Literally, I had no idea. I was like, what in the world is this? First of all, I was just blown away by Hatsumi Sensei's presence and his youthfulness and his vigor at 63 or 4 years old, as he was at that time. I was 27, and just watching him kick and move and tear and jump and be so lively that it blew my mind. It was like a paradigm shift for me, right? I want to talk about paradigm shifts late in another video, but it just destroyed my brain. It was like, oh my God, you know, my dad died at 60, right? And he was decrepit, right? And I think a lot of us can kind of relate to that, that 60 years old was like, you know, my God, you're ready to die. Just, you know, might as well get your walker out and, you know, take it easy, old man, because, you know, you're on the way out, right? And so you know, you don't know what you're being conditioned into until you start to know that there's other ways of living, right? So I looked at Sensei and I was like, oh my God, I mean, I don't have to die at 60. I don't have to become a decrepit man at 60. I mean, it just blew my mind, right? I just can't tell you how much that much. If I had learned that much and then left and never gone back to Japan, it had changed my life already. Right? Let alone the transformation that was going to take place over the 27 years I trained with him. Right? So just that much was amazing. And I thought to myself that day, when I was watching him teach, had no idea what he was doing again, getting back to the you don't have to understand part, had no idea what he was doing, but I was like, whatever this man is teaching, I want more of it. You know, whatever he's saying, I'll do it. You know what I mean? This is like it was like giving me another, like, second life to look forward to be excited about a future that has, you know, energy and power and beauty in it, right? So I was like, okay, sign me up. I'm here. You know, of course, in the back of my mind, I was still an arrogant prick at 27, thinking, okay, you know, I'm gonna master this in 5 years and go home and, you know, be a Budo star or something, right? You know, I think maybe a lot of us had that idea when we went into this, right? But that's not how it happens, and thank God it doesn't happen that way. Again, and that goes back to not having to understand, right? So again, we'd be training stuff and Sensei would be doing things and he'd be saying, you don't have to understand, right? And of course I was like, you know, what is he talking about? I want to understand, you know what I mean? Or in fact, I'd be like, I understand. I don't care what you're saying, old man, but I understand, right? You know, I was thinking about these things like that. Because if you understand something, then your opponent is going to understand something too, right? He's going to understand what you're doing. Right? And Sensei wouldn't let us understand what he was doing to a certain degree, right? It took a long time for me to figure out what he was actually teaching. So this idea of teaching something that you can understand, yes, it's good in the beginning, right? But I think as you move up this ladder in your journey of martial arts, Sensei challenged us and he kept evolving and kept throwing out things that we couldn't quite understand, right? And this is so important because this goes to a lot of different concepts that he taught us over the years, and I'll try to make some videos on those as well. But this idea of, like, you know, if it's understandable, then it's really just the understandable is the simplest thing you can teach, right? Okay. Something to be understood that can easily be understood is the lowest denominator, right? Yeah. we're martial artists, not, we're not martial scholars. There's a big difference between those two, right? Well, God, I'll get some hate for that, but I'm saying I don't want you to take too much of an academic look at it, because this is an art. And art kind of has no rules in it. It should have no rules, right? If you're trying to do something that's understandable, then the opponent's going to understand it. It's going to be easily be defeated, right? So these things you don't have to understand was so important to my training, and that I could let go of this idea of trying to understand Sensei and just be in the moment and try to enjoy this kind of art that he was displaying, on display all the time, constantly. So I want to share a story with you right now about one time I was in the dojo with Hatsumi Sensei that illustrates this point. I was in front of Sensei doing a technique training with somebody, and he looked at me and said, "No, Paul, you're thinking. Don't think." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, no problem." And I do it again, and he says, "No, terrible. You're thinking about it. Don't think about it." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, right." And I do it again. He's like, "No, you're thinking about it." And but this happened like, I don't know, a few more times after this, and I'm like, I swear to God, I'm not thinking about it. I'm like, I'm not thinking about this, right? And of course, the more he said, "Don't think," I'm probably thinking, right? And so finally, he looks at me and he's like, "Hey, Paul," he said, "Did your life ever turn out like you thought it was going to turn out?" And I took a moment to reflect, and I said, "Yeah, absolutely not." And he's like, "Well, then don't think about it, because it ain't going to turn out like you're thinking about," right? And that hit me hard. Then I was like, "Wow, you're so right." Here I was, going to school in America, university, doing the whole thing you're supposed to do, get your master's degree. You're going to work on some international finance thing. The next thing I know, I'm a freaking street performer on the streets of Japan, doing all kinds of weird things, juggling fire, riding 3-meter unicycles. Whoever thought I would do that? I never. If you'd have told me 5 years before I moved to Japan that I'd be riding 3-meter unicycles, juggling fire, knives in front of huge crowds, I'd have been like, "Yeah, you must have me confused with somebody else, because that's definitely not in the cards for me," right? So nothing turns out as you think it's going to turn out, So you don't have to understand what's going to happen, right? And sometimes it's best not to know, or else you'll just, you'll screw it up, right? If someone told me you were going to be, sort of like this juggler extraordinaire and all these things, I'd have been like, "Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that," and maybe have avoided this whole path, by using my mind too much, getting in my way, so to speak, right? So I think it's good that you don't understand. Like Sensei would often say a long time ago, like, you don't want to know when you're going to die, really. You know what I mean? You don't know when you're going to die, and it's probably best that you don't know when you're going to die, right? So this also reminds me of a conversation I had with Kan Sensei's son, Hirotoshi-san, when he was here just the other day. There'll be a video out on this soon, I'm sure, but we were just talking about certain episodes, and we were talking about this idea of not understanding. And he said that Kan Sensei once told him, right, that you don't have to understand. Whatever you don't understand, it's okay. You just take in what you don't understand, and you don't try to change it. You don't try to digest it and then make it something easily maybe digestible, right? Just take that in as it is, in this unknown, unfathomable, whatever you want to call that, right, idea, and then spit it back out. Throw it up again, Sort of like we were talking about, he said, Kan Sensei said, like a bird, right? Like a mother bird when it's feeding its young, right? It'll chew stuff up and then spit it back into the little baby bird's mouth, right? Because it's got all the nutrients and everything, right? So it doesn't digest it and then give him that, right? Because that would be pretty disgusting, right? No one wants to eat what you've digested, right? So like a bird's mother will chew up the worm or whatever, make it all mushy, and then spit that right back out into the mouths of the young, right? And that's what I think is very important when you're talking about this not understanding part. You just take that in for what it's worth, for what it is, and then spit it back out as is. Don't worry about trying to digest it, right? Because if you try to digest it, what happens sometimes is that you turn it into something totally different, right? I mean, you know where I'm going with this, right? It turns into shit. Not always, okay, all right, I don't want to get so much hate, right? But I'm saying it has that possibility of it being changed and tarnished, turning into something completely different than what it was if you just take it in as it is and then give it back out. And so that's kind of what I try to do in my way of passing on the Bujinkan to my students, right, is I took it in for what it was from Sensei, and I'm just trying to pass it back out. In fact, I threw away all my notes. People are going to say, "What? Are you crazy?" I don't know, maybe so. But I do, Sensei published, some of the kata, and I can get scrolls elsewhere, so who cares, all right? So I want to leave you all with that thought. And then I want to say happy birthday to Hatsumi Sensei. And I want to send all my best wishes out there to my Bujinkan brothers and people who aren't even doing the Bujinkan or just like to watch this channel. Thank you so much for watching. And since I'm saying that, make sure you hit the like button. Really, that helps this channel out a lot. It helps the YouTuber. It helps the YouTube algorithm, right? I know there's a bunch of lurkers out there just watching and not doing anything, but please just hit the like button for me. That's all I ask. You don't have to buy anything. Just hit the like button, right? Subscribe, turn on your notifications if you want, and come back and see us again because, we'd love to have you. See ya.